you being the historian that you are, obviously your favorite new program on television has to be WWE's Most Wanted Treasures for the historical accuracy and the suspense that I've said this last week, and then I watched the episode with Lawler and Kaufman. Obviously, I want to see that, and it's great to see the old footage of Lawler against Jackie Fargo and Harley Race and all the old Tennessee stuff on a modern-day cable network. But they do this every week. The premise of the show is we've got to recover these lost treasures, these holy grails of merchandise to eventually one day, put together for the Hall of Fame or whatever. And so they recover these lost treasures by going to the people that have them and getting them. There's no search. Hey, Jerry, where in the world could we find that crown and robe that you debuted on Raw in? Well, in my fucking basement. And where in the world can we find Andy Kaufman's neck brace? I don't know. Gee, let's call Bill Apter. He introduced us, and it just so happens it's hanging on Bill Apter's wall when they walk in the house where it's been for the last 35 years. This is not a Curse of Oak Island search here. Would this be a better 30-minute program because they don't really need to search? And who is this wrestler in training that they have nominated?
No, superstar in training.
Oh, God. All right. Superstar in training that they've nominated to be the host of this program. Is he a superstar in training because he's a big guy who has done television, or is he? I mean, which came first, the chicken or the egg? I don't see that this guy necessarily looks like a natural at television or wrestling, and he certainly doesn't know the history. So how the fuck did he get this gig? What's going on here?
It's a label I can't take seriously because I remember in camp you had the counselors and then the counselors in training who were always just jerk-offs looking for a summer job. I don't know who this guy is. Apparently he's training to be a wrestler. Apparently, at least for this show, he is the person they have sent on the road with capital to acquire things for the makeshift area of the warehouse where they're designing what appear to be displays for a future museum and Hall of Fame they'll probably be housing in Florida. I don't know who the hell he is. When he was offering, I mean, we'll get there. When he was offering Lawler money, he's like, how about $7,500? And Lawler's like, no, I can't do it. How about $10,000? I'm like, well, he jumped pretty quick.
Well, no, he started lower than that, didn't he?
Oh, he started out really lower, but then he went from $7,000 or $7,500 to $10,000. That's when I said, oh, Jerry, hold out. But the whole thing's obviously a predetermined show.
Well, I think you mentioned it at one point. It has an element of Pawn Stars to it, whereas they're just doing a bit. This transaction, I don't believe this transaction has not been previously discussed and agreed to. But they're offering less money for these things than some yahoo on the internet would offer. So I don't blame Dave Milliken for, what did he turn down? Or they wanted something and he turned it down. And then
a creative nickname?
What?
I don't know.
No. What were they trying to get? What did they get?
It was like 2,000. I think they offered him like 2,000 or something for the boots.
That's right, the boots. And then, he wouldn't sell them. But then he would if Lawler drew him a picture. I refuse to believe that that's the only picture that Lawler's ever drawn Dave Milliken. But anyway. I mean, it's nice to see the old footage, and I enjoy that these rivalries, whether it's Taker or Kane or Lawler or Kaufman or whatever, are being revisited. But I mean, if there should be some kind of hunt for these things, or is that just for the wrestling nerds in us that we want to see really obscure and old things? Valuable things, whatever, historic things uncovered and found, and we don't care that we already knew. I think I pretty much knew that Kaufman's neck brace was hanging on Bill Apter's wall, since I mentioned it's been there for 35 fucking years. Is it just us? Is this good for the masses, Brian? What do you think?
I think it would be a really interesting show and probably an entertaining show, the search for real wrestling memorabilia and historic items. This is Pawn Stars. This is They pick like 4 things for each episode, and you get a little bit of history-ish content where there's some historical information that's true, and then just people say whatever they want. Jerry Lawler said that was his debut, that King of the Ring. That wasn't his debut. He had been there for 6 months plus already. He debuted on Primetime Wrestling. He was in the Royal Rumble already. That wasn't his debut. It was said a few times.
Now, in his defense, I guarantee you that if you held a gun on Lawler and said, "When did you debut?" and that he don't remember. I
don't blame him for saying it. He's in his 70s and he said it. I don't blame him for saying it.
If he was in his fucking 40s, he don't give a shit. He never.
But
he never paid attention to dates and facts and figures and things and such of that nature.
They should have fact-checked it and not put it in there.
No, I'm not saying yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, like last week on the biography on Savage, when Lawler said that, and several people remarked on this. We brought it up that Lawler said that when Savage left, he said, "I'll turn on the TV, Vince," and there they were, and they were looking. No, that he was thinking it was Luger. Luger was a year later or whatever. When Savage left, it was the Fernwood Resort, by the way. Somebody tweeted a picture of it. The arena burned down in 2018. They tweeted a picture of Raw in the Fernwood Resort Hotel Arena or whatever it was called, and then the fucking burnout building. But that's where I was when Vince found out that morning that Savage had left and was going to WCW, and we were stuck at a resort in the Poconos doing Raw with heart-shaped jacuzzi tubs in our rooms while I was all alone. But yes, it was the Fernwood Resort. So can you imagine now advertising Raw from the Fernwood Resort in fucking Pocono, Pennsylvania or whatever?
Fernwood tonight with WWE.
With and who could be fucking oh goddamn. Now I've lost his fucking name, the Hesseman. Howard Hesseman.
Howard Hesseman? He wasn't on Fernwood tonight.
Who was the host?
He was on KRP.
Yeah, but
Martin Mull.
Harmon Hesseman. Howard Hesseman was Dr. Johnny Fever.
That's
Martin
right.
Mull was all right. But anyway, so what were we talking about?
The Lawler Most Wanted.
The Lawler Treasure.
Is that the name of it? Most Wanted Treasures.
Most Wanted Treasures.
And they, it's weird. I mean, the whole thing of a future Hall of Fame, like I said, they have these like makeshift displays. And when they purchased it from Lawler, the various items, they had the display ready to put it next to what Bret Hart wore at King of the Ring. They had like an Andy Kaufman display, like they were ready to do something with. So I said it a few weeks ago. It seems like the whole idea of the show is to build into having a Hall of Fame. It really does seem like that.
Well, I think Triple H wants to, and he's made comments about it like it can't just be, because most halls of fame are, just they don't run at a profit because after a while the novelty wears off. But if they did something with, in the tourist area in Florida and interactive and all that bullshit and et cetera, they could probably make some money out of it. But, that's the point is the Hall of Fame. Remember, we were talking a few weeks ago, and we said, "Why is Cyndi Lauper not in?" And then, didn't somebody?
And she isn't. No, you know what? We actually, you may not even know this. I edited it off the show, the retraction or the correction, because it turns out that wasn't correct.
Okay.
She's not in the Hall of Fame.
We read a retract because we said she's not in the Hall of Fame, and somebody wrote and said, "Well, you asshole, she is." So we retracted it, and then you edited the retraction because she's not. But also, Andy Kaufman isn't in the Hall of... How the fuck, if they're doing this and have been acknowledging this for so long, are you telling me that somebody in Andy Kaufman's family would have turned it down? I can't see that. So he seems like a Drew Carey, for fuck's sake. Or, Snoop Dogg or whoever the fuck else is in the WWE Hall of Fame. No Andy Kaufman, no Cyndi Lauper in the celebrity wing. That's ridiculous.
I like that Bill Apter, because he did this to me once when we were chatting about something, and I didn't know what it was, but he throws out the term Apter's Alley, like you're immediately supposed to know what he's talking about. Because one day he said to me, there was something he wanted, he goes, "I'd really like it for Apter's Alley." I said, "What the hell is that? I've never heard of this before."
Well, no, he's been doing it, but Fred Allen was a famous radio host in the 30s and 40s in Allen's Alley. And Bill's been trading off Fred Allen's material for the past 60 years. No, I can't.
I like that he had the neck brace hanging on the wall, and above that's a picture of him and Andy. It's the one picture from the 80s where he's dressed like Savannah Jack.
Yeah.
Every other picture, he's dressed all nice. That one, he looks like a wild man.
But Kaufman got wrestling publicity on national TV in the late 70s and early 80s when it was not on national TV and nobody but Andre the Giant on The Tonight Show you would ever see. He had Buddy Rogers on Saturday Night Live that one time as his corner man when he wrestled some women. He did it on all those talk shows, and Freddie Blassie obviously did some stuff with him. So Kaufman did more for wrestling's, mainstream profile than anybody else in show business during that period of time.
Yeah, I wonder if younger wrestling fans understand just how big a moment it was, the Letterman thing. I know we see the clip and it's played up like a big moment, but in an age where cable was just starting to get rolling in different parts of the country and people still just had a limited amount of channels, that was a big deal that had happened on the show. And then it was in newspapers all across the country the next day. There wasn't anything like that, getting that kind of publicity that was A, wrestling based, and B, not putting wrestling down. It wasn't a nationwide thing like, oh, look at these shamsters. It was, what happened? Was this real? We don't know what happened. Comedian KO'd on TV.
And the match had been covered by every wire service. Obviously, the Memphis paper wrote it up big, but it was covered in every newspaper in the country in one form or another. I've got a bunch of the clippings. Some of them did full features with pictures and everything. Some of it was in the by the way column in the sports section or whatever. But that it was reported by almost every newspaper as, even when they said, wrestling may be fixed or whatever they would term it, but apparently this guy really got hurt. And they've had pictures of Andy in traction in the neck thing in the hospital in the bed. And then it came back and got a double whammy with the thing on Letterman, which was, in effect, depending on your definition of the term, it was a shoot, and that it really happened on the spur of the moment. They had discussed it beforehand, didn't really make a deal, but as Lawler said, he knew it was now or never when he heard him playing the fucking music to the break. And obviously nobody else knew that was going to happen. Even, Andy's handlers and manager and things. So nobody was able to figure it out. But Andy had been doing shit like that you couldn't figure out whether it was a work or not in all those matches with the girls, and all of his fucking half of his stage routine was you didn't know whether he was, at first when you saw him for the first year he was on television, you didn't know whether he spoke with that accent for real or not until he launched into the Elvis impersonation that was fucking perfect. And then you're like, what the fuck? So nobody knew what the deal was with him anyway. And when he brought Buddy Rogers on Saturday Night Live, by the way, that was kind of a historic thing, because think about that. Buddy Rogers in 79 or 80, he'd been the biggest draw in Madison Square Garden 15 years before that, and nobody in New York had seen him since. So I heard from a lot of the fans the old fans in New York at the time, that was like they were creaming in their pants because there was no other way to see Buddy Rogers at that point in time except in Andy Kaufman's corner on Saturday Night Live wrestling women. And they were like, my God, he was, the god of wrestling here in New York 15 years ago. So he got the whole business a lot of publicity, and none of it was really bad.
And it seemed like he had pretty good taste. It was, I want to be a heel like Fred Blassie, like Buddy Rogers, not, oh man, I love Jay Strongbow in that dance. Like, it could have been that. Like, we've seen celebrities that, like, they're interviewed and they like the worst shit.
Yeah, at least he had good taste. And he was a natural heel. He understood it. And he understood, keeping the fucking gimmick going. But anyway.
Hey, you mentioned the Randy Savage biography. I was checking out a piece of that before, because when I DVR'd this Most Wanted Treasure show, it got like the last 30 seconds of the Randy Savage biography. So it had like the special thanks and like additional footage supplied by, I forget the exact heading. And, you see the usual suspects on a lot of these things. Like, you'll see Pro Wrestling Illustrated. You'll see recognized companies or bodies. I swear to God, in the credits there, it had... I'm just going to throw a couple names out that weren't really there, but just to give you an idea of companies, and then the third one will be what it had. Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Cornette's Collectibles. Memphis Wrestling. ICW Wrestling. They're thanking Memphis Wrestling for the Memphis Wrestling footage they used in this documentary. Of course, the footage is public domain, but they thank Memphis Wrestling in the credits. And ICW.
I'm sure that Lawler signed something that they felt was legal or whatever. But anyway,